Okay, everybody, let's get started. My name is Holly Herrick. I'm head of film at Austin Film Society. Welcome to our Sundance Film Festival Beyond Film Programming in partnership with Oak Cliff and the Texas Theater. Special thanks to the Dallas Film Society as well. We're talking to the filmmakers of JOCKEY, which hopefully everybody had a chance to see at the festival this week. I have a few quick announcements before we get started. First of all, thank you to the Sundance Film Festival for partnering with Austin Film Society this year for the presentation of films at our drive-in cinema, as well as our online panels, which I know a lot of you have been attending throughout the week. And if you'd like to turn on your closed captions for this panel, you'll find them at the bottom of your Zoom screen with the button labeled CC Live Transcript. So just go to the bottom of your Zoom screen and hit the button CC Live Transcript. So a bit about Austin Film Society. We work every day to make Austin a center for independent film. That means supporting independent filmmakers from Texas' diverse communities with support services and grants. And during the pandemic, that's been especially important. We also run a community media center right here in Austin where anybody can get their hands on the tools of the trade. We have a production facility called Austin Studios, which is right in central Austin and hosts a range of productions and small businesses. And we work to keep film culture in Austin thriving by bringing great films and filmmakers to our community. While our full-time art house cinema is temporarily closed, we are running a virtual cinema called AFS at Home. So after the festival is over, we hope you'll visit us and find out about all the great films that are available at austinfilm.org on our AFS at Home platform. So during our panel today, we have just a wonderful group of people we'll be speaking with, and you can feel free to interact with the other participants using the chat window during the discussion. But if you'd like to ask a question, please use the Q&A function. I'll be monitoring that, and when we have a break in the conversation, I'll be able to bring up your questions to our panel. So please just remember to put any questions in the Q&A. So I'm now going to introduce our illustrious group here today, a bunch of people I really admire and have enjoyed working with over the years here in Texas. First of all, Clint Bentley, who is the director and the writer of JOCKEY, is here with us. Greg Kwedar, who is the producer and writer of JOCKEY, and also was the director of TRANSPECOS, a film that he and Clint also made together. We also have Toby Halbrooks from Sailor Bear Productions, very famous here in Texas film community, but he's made films including The Old Man and the Gun and Miss Juneteenth. And our moderator today is James Faust from the Dallas International Film Festival, the artistic director and a champion for independent film. And before we get started, I'm just going to turn it over quickly to Barack Epstein from the Oak Cliff Film Festival to say a few words.
Hey, Holly, thank you for that. This is Barack from the Texas Theater and the Oak Cliff Film Festival in Dallas. We also were a satellite venue for the Sundance Film Festival, the venue in Dallas, Texas. And we were running films outside and inside. And we had a great screening the other night, a socially distant indoor screening of JOCKEY that Greg and Clint were out, and it was a fantastic screening. And I'm glad to co-present this program with you guys all here today.
Thank you so much, Barack. So this will be streaming online after we record today. So if you know anybody who wants to hear more from these filmmakers, please feel free to route them to austinfilm.org. We'll be sharing it on Facebook as well as on our website. All right, I'm going to turn it over to James Faust of the Dallas Film Society.
Thanks, Holly. Happy to be here, guys, and good to see everybody. Clint, Barack, thank you for doing it safely, and dang, Toby, neighborhood buddy, and Greg. So we're here to talk about Texas filmmaking, mainly some of you guys based in Dallas, but first of all, let's just kick it off with what you guys just finished, Clint and Greg, JOCKEY. I am very excited that you guys got this into Sundance. I'm so proud that I've known you guys as you've come up the last, I guess we started, I guess like 5 or 7 years ago. 7 years ago with racing, Rising from the Ashes. Greg, was that about right?
That was 8 years ago.
Oh God, 8 years ago. So we've been lucky enough to know each other I've been lucky to know you guys for a while with TRANSPECOS and all the shorts that have come in between. And Clint, you've done some work with us with our veterans program. But JOCKEY, like, where did this? I've literally been around you guys for long. You guys are really close mouth about this type of stuff. So where did JOCKEY come from? All of a sudden you pop up, you tell me, hey, we got this movie we might be doing, and it might be getting into something. So Where did Jockey come from?
It's so funny. We're only closed mouth about it because people really didn't want to hear about it for a while. It was one of those movies that we've been trying to get made for years. We made a proof of concept short a few years back that we're really happy with, and helped kind of us figure out how to shoot a movie on a live working racetrack. But yeah, we tried to get it made with a lot of different partners, and nobody seemed to want to make it. And so Greg and I just pulled together a crew and went out and shot it, not knowing what would ever happen with it. But and then the longer story is that it comes from my family. My dad was a jockey, and I just felt like once I got older that world had never been really portrayed as it actually is on film. And so really wanted to make a movie that's an homage to people who don't get movies made about them, even when they get movies made about their sport. It's always about the racehorse and never about the jockey. And then also just present it as it really is. And then Greg and I kind of built the story from there.
So is it a personal story, or you said it's about your family? So how personal? I mean, like some of the characters in it, like Clifton Collins Jr. is one, an amazing actor, but and Molly Parker and Moises. I mean, these got an amazing cast. So I don't know. It's not your dad, right? Because I mean,
no, it's a good question. It's one of those things that the way Greg and I write movies beforehand, and then even moving into production, is we really allow them to live and breathe and grow as we get into production, and we're constantly rewriting and changing. And so it started out as very personal, just about making it about a jockey. But then from there, once it became about an aging jockey trying to reckon with his last season on the track, it went into its own story, and it had a lot of elements from my life, but also elements from Clifton's life and elements from Greg's life that all kind of become mashed up. And then Molly Parker came on set and brought her own spin into her character, and wrote a monologue for her character that really like brought a new theme to the story, and so it became very personal to all of us by the end of it.
and it's great, this type of story, and this is something when you and Greg did TRANSPECOS too. It's sort of like inside baseball. So we all think about jockeys. We think about, oh look, they get on the horses. They're small people. They ride out. But this takes a deeper look into some of the personal side and the more dangerous side of the sport.
Yeah. Greg, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, the inside baseball aspect is really just us following our own curiosity, which first starts with a place or a world or an institution that maybe we have a familiarity with it. We've heard of Border Patrol, we've heard of horse racing, but we haven't really had access to, like, I don't know, the deeper particularities, the details. That's what we're drawn to, and what we always talk about is that we build stories from the dirt up, which is first just that place. We're hyper location specific, and once we sort of find it, it's sort of like, okay, who are the people there, and what's their relationship with their setting? Are they in harmony or conflict with it? And then that starts to kind of probe into story ideas that constantly evolve. I mean, we're pretty notorious, and as we started to do more studio writing, at the chagrin of our partners, but we're not precious about the story. We're precious about the world and the people. Those really stay locked, but we'll kind of page one rewrite like 5, 6, 10, 20 times if it takes it to kind of find the right vehicle to carry us through that honors it. What we always talk about, like, what is that arrow shot through the world that you can fire, but that you do all the work to build the credibility so that you feel guided. You feel like the people taking you on the journey did their work and earned the trust. And then once we're there, as Clint said, I mean, specifically with Jockey, once we found Turf Paradise in Arizona, it just kind of it was like a puzzle box. It kind of kept opening up new corners to us, that we would find a particular setting within the track that became an opportunity for a scene. We'd meet someone on the backside that was so one of a kind and so special, and had such a either a yearning or an eccentricity that we had to weave them into the film, and it just kind of evolved like that.
And the track is a character in a way, just like the actual, just that world, that just the stables and everything else. So talk about finding that world, like finding that. You said once you found, did you look at a lot of tracks, or had you visited that? Or are you guys heavy gamblers and you're going out to, Lone Star and Grand Prairie every now and then? What, I mean, how does that work?
They, as you can imagine, not a lot of horse race tracks were open to the idea of a film crew, no matter how small, coming onto their track and shooting during the season. And so it was just kind of a whittling down process of starting with, like, one, the look was really important. Like, we didn't want a track to look like, the Kentucky Derby, Churchill Downs, like all of that. And so we wanted one of these tracks that's just on, like, the working class circuit. And then, so you whittle down there, and then you look at what's in season, and then you whittle it down further. And by the time we started talking to tracks, only 2 were open to us coming on and doing this there. And one of them was Turf Paradise, and Vincent Francia, who manages that track, just is a great film lover and a beautiful person, and just saw the potential of it, and really made it possible. And so Turf Paradise just had it all. It was something that it's a beautiful track, and it's really interesting. It has a lot of character, but its prime was a couple decades ago. But it's still out there running races every day and people working at it. And so it just felt like the perfect, location and vehicle for this place, for this story.
It was really courageous of them to kind of add on to that, to let us have both the access that we had, but even just to be there at all, because of the scrutiny that the sport is under right now, with a lot of the trauma that's happened to the animals, and then by proxy also the jockeys themselves is just as dangerous. But I think, and then also not to censor us, not to, they really trusted us to tell the story that we wanted to tell, kind of wherever it led. And they were all a part of it. I mean, the head of the track, is in the film as a character. So many of the actual jockeys and trainers, it really became a community effort.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too, because there's a lot of close up, the magic of film, and when Clifton's riding, or if Moises is riding, there's just really, really close up shots on the side of the horse. Did they ever actually ride, or these are complete stunts, or did you not have the insurance for that?
No, we did. We had the insurance, and we had actors that were willing to do it, and they all really wanted to jump in and ride.
Have they ridden before?
What's that?
Had they ridden horses before? Are they road horses? Were they?
Clifton had rode quite a bit from Westworld. And that was one of the draws of, like, we wrote this film for him, to be a starring vehicle for him, because we'd worked with him on TRANSPECOS, as you know, and just fell in love with him as an actor and as a human. And that was a big part of it, as well as, like, oh, he rides a lot. And yeah, that helped a lot. And we had them ride on Hollywood horses, not on race horses, because you see the difference pretty quickly once you get out there.
So you guys shot. So that was in Arizona. Was there, germane to this conversation, was there any of this that was actually filmed here in Texas? Or I'm in Texas, if anybody cares. Some big people.
No, but the proof of concept short film was filmed at Retama outside of San Antonio. But the feature itself was, 95% of that film is within the gates of Turf Paradise.
Okay. Wow.
And that was a scheduling thing that first and foremost, because we were the hope was to shoot here in Texas. There's 3 tracks, but they just weren't open at the time. So
you guys are traveling. When did you shoot this? Because we're in the middle of a pandemic now, and I think you guys were 2019, 2018 when you're making this. When was this?
Yeah, we wrapped just before Thanksgiving 2019. So like just before the holidays, we started the edit in earnest in January, and then everything shut down. So.
And this is.
We finished.
Go ahead, Greg. No, go ahead, Greg.
I was going to say, we were pretty close on the cut right as everything shut down, right as like South by Southwest closed their doors, and we were all like, whoa, this might be a little serious. And then at that point, we kind of went into this weird limbo state where that time actually kind of benefited the cut, where we had a little bit of space to to really be thoughtful about things, particularly like the opening 15 minutes of the film, we tried, 1,000 ways up that mountain. And then, everything was somewhat on hold and in this weird state. Like all of our post team was queued up, but they were working on other stuff. And we got the call from Sundance, and then, it was like a dead sprint, and having to figure out all of these systems to do it, remotely. And we had all of our partners were kind of spread across the world.
Yeah, that's one thing. So Greg, you're based in Austin, right? Right.
Yeah.
You used to be up this way. You're from the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Yeah, I was born in Fort Worth.
Okay.
And so, I was here till I was 18.
And then, Clint, you're in Dallas.
I'm in
or
Dallas.
Oak Cliff proper, probably, I think, right? Yeah. So how was that? How do you guys have a production company, you work together, but yet you're not in the same city. I mean, how does that work out? And then
A lot of Zoom.
Zoom before the pandemic.
It was a lot of Skype pre-pandemic. And yeah, just working together, getting together to write when we could. The writing side of it is we would always kind of outline from afar. And then when it came time to like really knock out that draft, we get together somewhere and just knock it out in like a week or 2 weeks if we can. And then when we're traveling for production, our productions are always all over the place. And then we do a lot, as I'm sure Toby, you experience as well. There's a lot of traveling back and forth to LA for meetings. And then I'm curious how you do it, Toby. You're at a different level than we are in terms of having done this longer, but we just go out and spend like a week and then come home.
It's all right. That. Luckily, it's easy. It's like 3 hours. You can go that morning and just be there for the week and have those meetings set up. Yeah, that's how we do it. I mean, we're in Dallas and Fort Worth as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just thanks for the segue there, Clint. I was just about to get on Toby and talk about Sailor Bear. And hey, Toby, real quick, congrats on Miss Juneteenth and the Spirit Award nominations, man.
Thank
I hope
you.
that.
Yeah.
Hope that's
Lots of love. Very happy for you.
I was really psyched about growing up, going to Juneteenth celebrations when you guys made that movie. I was like, about damn time. Somebody should do this, and so was really excited to see that. And actually, my mom actually watched it, and she doesn't watch anything. She thinks all people are white devils and it's all crazy. But she actually went and watched that film and loved it and wants to meet Channing at one point. So I was, she thought, this is what we're talking about. I go, this is cool. But the fact that you talked about Sailor Bear, that you guys are based here, but yeah, I mean, dude, you're doing movies all over. I mean, I think it was 4 years ago, we did that panel on going from small to big, and you were telling me about living in Australia, writing Pete's Dragon in some hotel room or something, and yet not a year and a half ago we're talking at the Studio Movie Grill at a screening of Old Man and the Gun. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. So talk about Sailor Bear and what you guys are trying to do and how you can still do it from here.
It's so funny. I say this pretty often, we're not calculating at all. We don't calculate moves whatsoever. Whichever the wind will take us that direction, it seems like. And I couldn't have predicted this outcome. The only thing that was vaguely calculating, I suppose, is that after Ain't Them Body Saints, we knew, we were interested in it. We didn't do it to be contrary, but we knew that it would be a complete curveball to say yes to writing Pete's Dragon. And at first that was just a writing gig, right? David wasn't attached to direct it, but we knew it was like, well, they're not going to be able to pin us down, which we've seen happen to other people and we didn't want to have happen to us. That was the only piece of calculation, meaning if we do this, no one will know what we're going to do ever. And that has really actually paid off in a really smart way, because we don't do the political thrillers. We don't do just family films. It's like no one knows what to expect except for hopefully quality. But how does it work? I have no clue. I mean, I'm in Vancouver right now on Peter Pan for Disney. Working with Disney was good enough that we came back, but we've made 7 or 8 films between the last Disney film and this one collectively as Sailor Bear, I suppose. But as far as like working and living in Dallas, I mean, obviously the pandemic has highlighted what I've known is that it doesn't matter. And that whether it's flying to LA for those little brief meetings that you're going to be having, a week of meetings or 2 weeks of meetings or whatever, that is actually an asset because we're only going to be here for a week,
Yeah.
you know, and people were like, okay, cool, you're only going to be here for this week. We'll make it a priority. And obviously we prefer living in Texas. And I think it's clear that people are leaving there to far-flung areas because quality of life matters.
Just to add to that, Toby, real quick, James, is, you know, we have the same experience in terms of like people most likely to hold your, like the let's do lunch, you know, but then it keeps sliding like for 1,000 years. Doesn't really happen when you're coming in and they know, yeah, they know you've flown in just for this meeting. But there's something I think a little deeper, like we enjoy LA. Like there's something kind of like, it's this huge, like highly concentrated collection of film nerds and like film history and all of that. And that's kind of fun to like go on the lot of these, you know, places that you've seen movies at, you know, since you were a kid. But at the same time, it is a bubble. It is an echo chamber where that like entertainment is the conversation that is happening at every table of every coffee shop, you know. And I think as people who are really interested in places and worlds, you know, and I feel that in the Sailor Bear work too, you know, there is something powerful about living somewhere else where you're fed by people, you know, whose lives don't revolve around entertainment. You can be an observer in a way that that you couldn't be if you lived in LA, I think.
So sort of like if you're always in it, you're never, how do you succeed in it? If it's always around you, you're like, man, I'm never get a break from it. And so living here, you seem to be.
You got to fill the well somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the Sailor Bear, actually, I was just thinking about what was the first project that you guys actually put your name on? Do you remember?
I mean, technically speaking, Pioneer, but we all did work on Saint Nick.
Saint Nick.
And we in Pioneer, that Sundance, that South by Southwest, actually we coined the name Sailor Bear. So yeah.
Where did Sailor Bear come
really?
from?
Oh, it's a super cute story that has almost nonsensical, because we didn't want to have a serious name because we're not necessarily serious people, despite making some serious films. But I was, for whatever reason, wearing a sailor outfit all the entire South by Southwest and was running around. I just thought that was the thing to do that year. And James is a bigger fellow and I'm a little fellow, and yeah, he's got a big beard and Sailor Bear. It was literal. It is the stupidest story, but somebody took a picture and that just stuck.
That's
And,
great.
Now it's recorded for prosperity here.
See if we need to come up with something new or whatever. I don't know. Never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's cool. I love that these guys are still making the movies here in the neighborhood, shorts, features, and everything. And I don't know, was there when you and David, you guys got Old Man and the Gun, and the movie predominantly a Texas story, but yeah, I think it was shot in Ohio for the most part.
Cincinnati, yeah.
Yeah.
Film incentives. Let's do it.
Was there a point where you were thinking, God, can we just shoot some? I think some of it was shot, but were the studios ever receptive because you said we can do it in Texas?
No, they don't care. And not because they're bastards or thoughtless or anything like that, but when you're looking at the difference between nixing a week of shooting versus not, you're going to go to the place that will facilitate shooting it, and clearly it worked. To get those 6 extra days or 5 extra days or whatever it's going to afford you to make the movie better. And that's just brass tacks. I mean, it's nuts and bolts decision making. And sometimes you can do it and sometimes you can't. We also obviously carved out, like you said, we worked with the Fort Worth Film Commission and shot a bunch of the movie in Fort Worth and got a bunch of plates so that it would feel of the world. Yeah, I mean, so you got to do what you got to do. I mean, some movies you can fight and it's utterly integral. Obviously, you found a way and had to go to Arizona to shoot at that track. Is the movie lesser than because of it? Of course not. I don't know. I'm not coming on here to complain about film incentives. It's just like, you got to do whatever you got to do. We clearly make a lot of movies there. Unfortunately, a lot of them end up being on the smaller side. But that doesn't, the movies don't feel pinched or smaller because of it necessarily. It just is there's a threshold where tax incentives become a part of the conversation, and it's obnoxious. And I wish it wasn't part of the game, but I'm in Vancouver, man.
No, I mean, we had to make a similar decision on TRANSPECOS. We wrote it in Texas. We're both from Texas. We both got our start in Austin. Marfa and the Big Bend area was where the movie was set and where we wanted to make it. And even on an independent budget like that, just going across that state line into New Mexico, even though we were shooting in a little town with no infrastructure still, it just made enough of a difference. So if anybody from the Texas legislature is listening,
and it really depends. With incentives, you're really looking at these trade-offs, because it's sort of like, it is real cash. You know, I mean, with Jockey, we actually did the opposite, where we looked at a track in Oklahoma where we had the permission there, and they have a major incentive program. They were really excited to have us there. But one, we weren't going to have the kind of access that opened up in Arizona, and that was more important to us than the dollars of, it made what you would gain in the dollars, you would lose in the opportunity that we had, for the store, what we could do with the place and with the setting, that was priceless. And so, you're always looking at those kind of different trade-offs, and sometimes, the location is just that important, or something else is just that important to be, in the state that you're shooting in, or country.
And it's not, and I feel the same way, Toby. I was trying not to come on and bitch about incentives, because I've been having these conversations with filmmakers for the last 5 years. Like, come on, but it is possible. We took out the incentive part from infrastructure wise. I mean, crew, some locations, it's possible to shoot quite a bit. I mean, there's a lot going on in Austin and a lot in Fort Worth. I mean, the infrastructure's here, correct? Am I?
100%.
And the talent's here too. There's a lot of amazing filmmakers, not just at Austin, everybody knows, but in Dallas, Fort Worth. I'm relatively new here compared to you two, James and Toby. But the amount of amazing filmmakers and crew members here is really heartening.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It would not be a struggle to do our productions here, even at a larger scale.
Do you ever think about, when you guys are creating, are you ever writing anything for, hey, you got a friend there, Greg?
It's Luna.
I love it.
If I put her out of the room, she can open doors. And so I like weighed that, again, trade-off. It would be a bigger distraction.
Trained dog. So are you guys ever writing for the area? Like writing, like, I'm going to, like Toby, ever thinking, I don't want to leave more than 20 miles from my house. I want to try to figure, you ever write something for the
That is never, that particular example, unfortunately, that you used is something I never consider. No, that would imply that I'm lazy. I'm lazy in 1,000 other ways, but not that one. But yes, absolutely, definitely a writing for a place. I mean, even specifically Green Knight, we're writing for castles. There's a lot of places in Europe that are going to facilitate castles. We went to France. We went to, we went to Budapest, and we were going to go to Wales, and we went to Ireland and landed and shot that movie in Ireland. So yes, specifically space specific, absolutely. But within a reasonable, like, these aren't French castles, or are these Welsh castles really? I know that's where those Arthurian legends happened. Nope, those are Irish castles. We didn't care that much. So there is a specificity, but there's a reasonable amount of wiggle room. But like these guys just pointed out, at TRANSPECOS, it's like, Marfa, you're walking across an invisible line that doesn't matter. It's fake, and it doesn't matter. And that river is the same river, and it didn't stop being the same river when it crossed that line. The camera doesn't care as much as that river doesn't care. And I don't mean to be too poetical about it, but these are things that just don't actually matter as far as, practically speaking, geography goes. To me, bringing things home would be a very special and thing. It's definitely on our agenda to do more and bigger at home. But home is very evidently a fluid thing these days, if that's not been made more clear. And family is a more fluid thing, and how you're spending your time and with who and what, and that we can all connect this way, and where everything is, and geography is becoming kind of less and less important in some regards. But who knows? God bless us. Please don't have a billion pandemic movies.
How much was A Ghost Story influenced by that though? When you got, because that was made here in Dallas, right?
Yeah, Irving, but yeah. And boy, not a boring distinction. But
Irving.
what do you mean? What's the question? How much was influenced by that?
Was that a thought? Was it a thought of like we want to make it in our hometown to like show something? I know that's a little bit
No.
more of a universal movie, or was it just like we're gonna make it around?
Well, yeah, it was that the budget's so low that we're not going to go anywhere. And that's practically speaking, but I mean, we obviously went to Irving. We don't live in Irving, to shoot every day at that house because that house was going to be demolished and it was given to us. That was practical though. But I mean, that's part of the decision making with these small movies though, isn't it? It's like whether it's,
Yeah.
we're going to get a couple extra days in Arizona versus Marfa, or we can even just go out with me and you and a camera and a guy and a sheet for extra days to keep shooting to fill out the movie or whatever it's going to be. But it's not a matter of a sense of place, other than the fact that that movie is like very emphatically a sense of place. But the word Dallas was never uttered, or even Texas.
No, totally.
And I know you weren't getting that specific, but yes.
And that's sort of the great thing about the state in sort of a nondescript way. Like Greg, you're in Austin, and Austin is I don't know, just a melting pot of all kinds of different places that things are shooting down there.
Yeah.
And for years, people were shooting here in Dallas. Like, that's not really New York. I don't know how they fake that street. And so that's kind of one of the great things about this state. If you can shoot here, you can shoot pretty much almost a lot of different things here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it hasn't. It's funny. So far, there hasn't been that instinct of like, I want to write something for my hometown. There's because so much of Clint and I's kind of curiosity, at least so far, has been like, where's somewhere we haven't been, and so there's sort of a questing kind of instinct to look out, and there may be a phase of our lives where we want to look in, but right now we're kind of in that space. And I think, but at the same time, Austin and even now, like just spending more time in Clint's neighborhood in Dallas and even parts of Fort Worth that's growing up, is just there's a quality of people here, and it's kind of, it's cultured, but it's grounded, and I think those two qualities are just good to have around you as an artist. Like, they're good people to be surrounded by, and there's things to listen to and watch and visit that serve us in more intangible ways.
That's cool. So a lot of new filmmakers are watching this, or hopefully they're watching this, and they're thinking about shooting in Texas. Like, how should they start? Who should they reach out to? Is there a network they think they should interact with?
Call Toby.
Please. Well, we have the film grant for sure. Austin Film Society obviously is a great resource that helps people. But as far as like general, it just depends on your stage. There's definitely a lot of people that want to be making things. I wouldn't know. It's like, thank God I got married before Tinder, because right now I wouldn't know how to go out and find friends to do this. In a similar regard, but I just have no doubt that the rule would apply that go out and work on everybody's thing. If you hear somebody needs help, go help them. Yeah. If you're trying to learn how to do this and want to do this, go be a part of that community and expect only to be learning in return. That's what I would do. And that's what I did. So it's money where my mouth is. And that has landed me in Vancouver, because you'll find the people that you want to be around, and those relationships will solidify and become stronger and stronger, and you'll find what you do and don't like and find your voice. That's what I would do anywhere if you're at Texas or beyond.
Vimeo has kind of made it so has democratized the process so much more than even when 10 years ago when we were getting started, to where whatever town you're in, you can find the most interesting filmmakers, or you can find the most interesting filmmakers in St. Louis or wherever you want to go. But with Texas,
just on Vimeo, because you can like look for location-specific short films or something on Vimeo.
Yeah, or location-specific filmmakers. I've done like
clever.
Random commercial projects where I've had to like go around the country. I would just look for like Raleigh, North Carolina, like who's out there, and you can find a people.
Look at this guy, industrious. You're gonna make
Hey,
it.
per this
I've never tried
conversation,
that.
the
Tip
Austin
of the
Film
day.
Society is an amazing resource and is super helpful and is making this possible, but it also like gives grants to short films and filmmakers, and it's great.
Well, and generally speaking, I would say that don't be afraid to reach out to people like me and or Clint or Greg. I think that we like helping people. And how much time can I give you? Who knows? Like, but I speak regularly to students at various colleges for various classes and things like that. And those students have my email and they write me sometimes and ask me questions. If I can spend a minute to help them, I will. If I can, like whatever, you know, the more specificity that they're looking for, the easier it is to help. But no, it's just not out of your reach, is what I would say. Like, yeah, just be down to
Just
work
to add
hard.
to that,
Yeah.
just to add to that, I mean, you know, we've been beneficiaries of Sailor Bear in many ways. Like David with Clint and Toby, we met before we shot TRANSPECOS in LA, oddly enough.
Yeah.
But and
No
Jeff
clue if I was
Nichols.
helpful or not. That's so funny.
No, you were. I remember it, you know, and Jeff Nichols, based in Austin, has been a mentor to us as well. The only thing I'd say about that is just, you know, there were two actually similar I don't know if you call them webinars or whatever at the time, but there were two keynote addresses that really were influential. There's this period of time young in your filmmaking career where you start to feel this like churning of like desperation, where you're expecting that there's someone out there that's got the magic wand that's going to make it all possible for you, that if I can just meet so and so, they have the keys to enable us to make our film. And it can be a really toxic spiral. And you'll start to write things like, hey, can we just get lunch? I just want to pick your brain about X, Y, and Z. Absolutely had written, you know, those emails to people. But there's this thing that the two keynotes I'd bring up is Ava DuVernay gave a film independent keynote, like maybe in like 2013, where she says like people want to be a part of a train that's leaving the station, you know, like they want to help you when you're actually active and doing something, not just sort of stuck, you know, holding a ticket, you know. And then Mark Duplass like gave a South by Southwest keynote saying like the cavalry isn't coming. And that is just so true. And it's just basically like everyone's going to be promising the cavalry is out there that's going to make this possible for you. And they'll keep promising it until you become the cavalry and you don't need them anymore, you know. And I think that's so true. And so I think it's all. What's that?
I'm sorry. Can we come up with a new metaphor? We've got a train leaving the station and a cavalry. That's on this call.
Yeah,
at the end of it, we've got to come up with a new.
Racehorse in the starting gates.
Sorry.
Oh,
Thank you. You're done. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Greg. You were on a real roll, and I'm just botched it.
No, I was grooving, but I was just like that. That's really all there's to say. Is just you know, you have more power than you think you do, and you have like, and that first starts with the people in your peer group. You know, like that's the greatest engine room for getting something made, not someone in some other stratosphere, you know.
Well, I totally agree. And you were saying as much a minute ago, Toby, it's just like, in terms of resources, the best resource you have is the friends around you who want to make movies with you. And just like Sailor Bear running around, you made Saint Nick back in the day, just like shooting it on weekends, right?
No, but it was only about a $10,000 movie, so most of that came from Austin Film Society. But it was like a 15 or 16 day shoot or something like that. But yes.
Yeah, well,
whatever it took, though.
And that's as we're coming up on questions, but I have a few more questions before we go to the audience. So we talked about the troubles of shooting around here, and mainly since Clint and Toby are in the Metroplex area and Greg's from this area, does it seem any easier to shoot here than it was before, or does it seem more attractive in the last 5 or 10 years? So Toby, you've done a few films here, and well, Greg, you have not, so we have to fix that. But does it seem easier to shoot in the last few years here? Is there more attractive? Are the film commissions being more helpful?
In Fort Worth, yeah.
Okay.
Wildly more attractive, 100%. A very, very high functioning film commission in Fort Worth. And that's not meant to entirely denigrate the Dallas one, but I literally have no relationship there or know what they do. But no, the question is crazy because, like, is it easier for me to make movies? Yeah, because I know a billion people now, and people know who I am. So that it's kind of, the question's broken for me. Just like for other people, Ghost Story wouldn't have been a $250,000 movie. You can't call Weta and ask them to do you $1 million VFX shot for free, and that's an exaggeration. But it's the same rule applies here. It's like, I think it's easier just because, like, phones are cool and you can shoot on them. The world's become easier. Is Dallas easier? Yeah, Dallas is just in infrastructure and communication and the volume of people that are there that are eager to do it. All those things make it easier. And I'm sorry to make such an obnoxious distinction about it, but I do think it's important to note that I recognize that the advantages we have and we'll use them. But we're also trying to, like, make it easier by having the partnering with the Austin Film Society on the North Texas Pioneer Grant, you know, for that exact reason. To, like, is it easier? Well, I hope so. I hope that people are getting to benefit from that, and hopefully we can keep growing that grant and making it even easier, or at least more sustainable for people. Hopefully that wasn't too obnoxious.
No, that's, and you're right. It's like I've seen a lot more of in Dallas versus Fort Worth. I see a lot of more TV shows that are ponying up here and getting their productions done. Where I see Fort Worth, like most recently, there was a Catherine Keener movie. I know Kelly
Williams did that.
Yeah, Kelly did that. No Future, that shot in Fort Worth, and I was thinking, oh, it's great. It's another feature shooting out there. Where if I'm talking to the film commission here in Dallas, I'm hearing more about the television stuff. I mean, we've got this Kabeel thing, we've got this thing happening. I go, wow. Oh,
it's so funny. There's shows shooting there and there's things happening there that I have no concept of. And it feels like the city's really small. I mean, Barack and I ride bikes every Sunday and ride the whole city. And I had never been to the South Side Studios. I didn't even know that they were there.
Oh, wow.
And he was telling me a TV show was shooting there. And I was like, what planet do I live on? I don't just stay in my house. Of course, this year, coincidentally, I do, but you know what I mean? It's like, it feels bananas to me that there's so much more happening that I know about, and that I figured that I had my finger on the pulse in some regard, and I just don't. And not feeling excluded, but meaning like the city has a lot going on and has a massive infrastructure of talent, a crew above and below the line to support TV shows and films and stuff like that. And just because I don't know anybody at the Dallas Film Commission, whatever, like, I'm sure they're helping somebody.
Yeah, and it's funny, the Southside Studios you're talking about, those were built for the TV show Dallas. They were
okay. There you go. What a fancy.
And then they still exist, and there's still people going down there. And I was literally just talking to a filmmaker the other day, and I go, "You should check out these Southside Studios. What they're set up."
A couple of things just to add to what you were saying, Toby, about Dallas is, finishing Jockey. The North Texas Pioneer Grant supported Jockey this year through Austin Film Society. Like, that was so freaking clutch. This was a really tiny budget film, and that enabled us to license all the music, these great songs that we were able to get for the project. We did our VFX through a company in Dallas, Burning Tractor, Wes Myers. Like, they really came in clutch for us and really were able to play ball. Our online editor, Daniel Labs, was here in Dallas, who's also works with Oak Cliff Film Festival. When we were trying to, Brock made our DCP and got it uploaded, and we were trying to find fiber in Dallas, which I was like, I'm in a tech city, and it's like, it's everywhere. It's like, not everywhere in Dallas. And Brock got all of our shit uploaded to Sundance. And then when we were trying to play the DCP in a theater, we were hitting up James here and being like, where can we find a theater to put this up? Also, Sailor Bear. So, I mean, it really is a community that, like, came through for us right at the end when we were, like, frantic and, like, hitting so many roadblocks with finishing the film.
Cool. And I see Holly's here.
Hello. So I don't see any questions in the Q&A, but so I thought I get to ask a question. I'm
Yeah,
just
come
loving the
on.
conversation so far. And I think, Greg, what you're just hitting on is sort of what are the elements of the ecosystem that have to exist in order for above the line folks to stick around and create community? Because I think that's something we talk about a lot in Austin is how do we get the elements of the ecosystem in place so that this is a friendly place for artists to thrive? Because, the end goal really is that we make our community a better place through what we love, which is film. And so having more artists here and having film production that supports the economy, all of these things kind of come together to make, these better places to live for the people who are here. And so I'm curious, from the North Texas perspective, what you guys think are sort of the essential elements that make you say, oh yeah, I can make it work here. I can make Dallas and Fort Worth work for me.
Mine is a really silly answer, so I will go last. Clint, you live here.
I think, to be honest, there's a little bit of like what Toby was talking about earlier. There's just the general like quality of life that needs to be there, which is there in North Texas and in Austin and a lot of places. And then below that, you need crew and you need good artists hanging out and being there, which these places both have a lot of. And then there's only so much you can do on the local level, in my opinion, to be honest, of you're just never going to be able to. Austin Film Society does amazing work, and Dallas does as well, and at like fostering those communities on a local level. But Texas is never going to be able to have the infrastructure that New Mexico or Georgia or Louisiana has by just relying on the local levels to do their part. This state level, if they don't do their part, then there's not going to be the bigger projects that are going to camp out here for 6 months. And then that means the showrunners aren't going to live here and set up shops as much. And it just like spirals from there. So.
Sure. I mean, one thing we could do is we could plan a pandemic and make everybody like weirdly realize that their life in LA is quite unnecessary and overly expensive, and had them flood the housing markets in Austin and Dallas. I think it's doable.
You should.
I think that's actually happening in a weird way because a lot of people are leaving, and a lot of people are leaving, and it's the same reason I'm staying is the reason I didn't leave. I'm lazy, and moving is a giant pain. I don't care. I like LA too. It's super fun. I like participating in all the things that it has to offer, but like I'm from here, and a lot of times that's really all that's kind of keeping a person in a place. So that's why my answer is kind of silly. It's like, why? What is keeping it sustaining for you? And it's like, oh man, this is where I'm at, and like none of us are really talking about moving. So it's not. But you're dead right. Like as far as like getting showrunners to care and want to stay, it would be incentives. But the truth is, they all most likely either are too established in LA to want to move or want to get out desperately anyway, which they're already kind of making moves to do. But otherwise, like making the city cooler, I don't know any regard in how to do that. Like putting like a blues tax on people playing blues in Austin bars, like to help build that city's infrastructure better for actual people that live there instead of the tourists. I don't know. Holly, can you get on that?
I mean, I guess I'm speaking more to sort of as an artist, as a filmmaker.
I get it.
Keeping you, but you did answer that. So
I honestly, one of the best things for me is like coming down and jamming on at the labs, like that's super collaborative, even though mostly it seems like one-sided where I'm supposedly mentoring somebody, but like I get a ton out of that. And meeting other people that I have a relationship with that are, mentors or collaborators or in some regard. So that's huge. I wish Dallas had something like that.
Yeah, me too. We've been working at the. Actually, Clint was looking up. We do a program for veterans. That's sort of like a start to help train veterans in filmmaking, and it's sort of, as we, to be very frank about it, there was money directed just for veterans to that by a particular donor and through sponsors. So I'd love to expand that program because I think that fostering that that community, that film community, and growing it. One of the things I always loved about Austin when I was going down there earlier in my life, when I could get a parking space, was when you could just, there was so many people that were in love with the film as filmmaking and film, like they were just, as you said earlier, film nerds. Like it was just so good. It felt really cool. And then to foster that, and then how Oak Cliff has done that, and that's what we're trying to do, like just getting more filmmakers involved in creating a community here in North Texas. And and I'm glad that Clint and Toby are still here, and David. I think I saw David running around the lake last year. I'm thinking, holy crap, David's still running around, that head gleaming, David Lowry. And going to James Johnson's joint down in Oak Cliff or in Fort Worth, and it's just building a community of people that know each other. Like Toby says, you can call anybody, and I think that makes it a little bit more lucrative. Maybe I'm out of my mind here, but I think that as long as you guys are here and talking with each other, it's going to look better to be here.
I think you're right. I do. And I'm sorry, I've been a little myopic in my answer, but I think that's accurate. Is like building a community becomes very attractive to people because the infrastructure is there, obviously. So it's just more about making sure that people feel like they've got something they can participate in.
Yeah.
So, sorry, go ahead. If anybody has anything to add, we have 2 more questions from them.
You have questions? Yeah, you do.
Okay. So one of the questions was about sort of raising funds from scratch. If you really are going from scratch, what is your advice for folks there? Yeah.
Yeah, this is something that we actually think, or any filmmaker is probably thinking a lot about, but we have a pretty kind of clear thought process behind this and methodology, which is, especially like with the first film in an independent space, we view it a lot like any entrepreneurial activity, which is like your first round of funding is like kind of a seed round, a friends and family round, where, if a lot of people who have startup businesses, like if you can't raise from your own community of people, the more sophisticated investors are like, how can I trust this, investment? And so it's kind of like a tiered process where, first it's kind of like, can you get, someone that's a friend of a friend of a friend, or within, your nuclear family or beyond, or in your neighborhood, or went to your school. That's what I mean by friends and family. Like they're the people that typically will take like kind of a first risk. And, a lot of times if people aren't like traditional film investors, like what we tend to think about is like a multiple bottom line approach, which is like, there's the kind of financial return, which is highly volatile, highly unpredictable, really unlikely. And so you need to create like other measures of return. And so for us, it's like oftentimes like one, just commissioning the arts. We had an investor we work with who's like, if you want to support the arts, you can buy one painting and support one artist, or you can invest in a film and support 100 artists. And that's really meaningful to investor types, especially at a certain phase of their career. And then 2, it's like, okay, if there's sort of a social commentary or issue involved, like, can you move the needle in intangible ways, shape the conversation? And then, beyond that, it's kind of like financial responsibility. Is the filmmaker taking $1 of investment and being responsible with it and showing $2 of value on the screen? Is like everything that they're giving you showing up in the picture. That's something that investors really respect. And so that, and also allowing the investors to be a part of like the, what we view as like the greatest artistic collaboration on earth, that they feel like they're a part of it in a meaningful way. Can bring a lot of joy to them as well. And that then, if you deliver on all those things, then you're converting them into your next project. They want to take the ride again, and then they're exposing you to, other investors within their, community, and it grows like that if you take care of people.
And I think if you're a filmmaker out there who's young and is trying to figure out, and is asking like, where do I find that first money from, or where do I get that first money? You're in really good company, because every filmmaker ever has that question. And we spent 4 years trying to answer it with TRANSPECOS, and just asking everybody, expecting a no, and then saying, can you introduce me to anybody else? But the other thing I would say that's been made especially clear, I think, in the last couple of years, is just like really, really, really make your movie for as little as you can make it and still make it good. And this is something we took to heart with Jockey, and it's something that we were inspired by Ghost Story, and by many other movies lately. It's just like, you can get a camera. So many people have amazing cameras these days who are making commercials with them or making branded videos, and they want to make a movie. And so just try and make it as cheap as you can and make something really meaningful and special and lean into the things that matter about the story.
So another question, are there any associations in DFW that are good for meeting other filmmakers? So how would you guys go about it? Obviously we're in a pandemic, but in normal times, how do folks meet up there?
I would say hang at the Texas Theater. Like, go see a movie at the Texas Theater. That's where I've met. I ran into Toby multiple times up there because some Tarkovsky movie was playing or something. Like, it just, the bar out at the Texas Theater is like, seems like ground zero here. I don't know. What do you think, Toby?
I don't know about any foundations or any infrastructure to. I wish I did. You know, even pointing out Vimeo's by location feature is a novel idea. But I wouldn't be opposed to reaching out to people whose stuff I admire. It's tough. I don't pretend that it's not tough to go out and find new friends. But yeah. So short answer, I don't know, Holly. I wish I had more information on that.
I'd say
I wish I was
shameless
more
plug for all film festivals in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, because there's like 11.
It is Oak Cliff and Dallas International. These are obvious things.
Oak Cliff, Diff, Dallas Video. Hell, the Denton Black Film Festival just finished. It's online, and I was in a chat room with a bunch of kids that are like, "This is crazy." But yeah, I'd say the festival circuit around here is strong. From Lone Star on, there's like 11 or 13 festivals in the neighborhood. So
is the USA Film Festival still a thing?
They're still around, and they don't play with others. So you're
sorry,
still
everybody.
I'm gonna.
God bless.
Those are all great suggestions.
Is there another question, Holly?
Yes, there is. Sorry, there's another one. So can you talk a little bit about maintaining or developing industry connections, staying in North Texas area? You're not going to, go to a bar and run into somebody who runs a distribution company or has a fund when you live in Texas. So what are the ways that you, first of all, make those connections, but also develop those relationships? And what are the important sort of events on your calendar or other things that you try to make sure that you do in order to foster your industry relationships?
Well, I would say the assumption is this person who's asking this question is that they made movies or make movies, because otherwise you don't really need those connections. And that's not to be obnoxious. It's very practical. It sounds very close to how do I get an agent, but not in a negative way. Film festivals, in film festivals is where I would participate in that, and like making sure that you're going to film premieres that you're aware of if you happen to be in Los Angeles or wherever else. Film festivals is the number one way, period. Because especially if you're not here, there's South by Southwest, there's Diff, there's Oak Cliff, there's, like he said, there's a ton, and that's right, relatively specifically local. And sorry, once again, to be obnoxious, like it's a pointed question, but if you're digging in and you're wanting to, you're right, you're not going to bump into a distributor or anybody who works at those companies unless it's Christmas and their families happen to be here. Cross your fingers.
And then they don't want to talk to you though, because they're with their families over Christmas.
But I mean, it's practical advice though, I think. Just
film
festivals would where you want to hang out. But first things first, you've got to have can't make somebody buy something they don't want. And like, obviously, what can you offer them? And how do you have I don't know.
That's what I was going to agree with
you.
We had the very similar. I mean, we did this before we made TRANSPECOS. Greg and I made a lot of trips out to LA and some trips to New York to try and like get an agent, get a manager, because we thought that would like make us filmmakers and help us make our movie. And we had Josh Braun, who came on as an executive producer onto TRANSPECOS, sat us down one day, and it was just like, guys, just go make your movie. Like, stop like trying all this. They'll all want to talk to you once you have a movie. But right now, there's nothing to talk about
Mhm.
because you don't have a movie. And that was the
Yeah, it really is the currency, is work. You know, work begets work begets work, and that meeting Clint was talking about was after literally Clint had spent like his last dollars to take a flight to LA with this manager with the magic wand that was going to make all of our dreams come true. And we literally walk in the room, and they were like, sorry, you know, like kind of, sorry, who are you again? You know, why are you here? And then we go into the meeting, and the manager was just like, oh, I just took this meeting because, you know, my friend, you know, sort of begged me to do it, and I have no interest in ever representing you. I'm looking for people who have a real voice. I don't think you're ever going to have it, you know, basically. And we just walked out, just being like, what the fuck just happened, you know? And it was a hard lesson.
that we could step in front of at that moment.
Sure.
But to Toby's like film festival thing, you know, South by Southwest was super clutch in the beginning of putting together TRANSPECOS. I mean, we had a script, we had done like work, we had made short films before, we had done a lot of we'd laid a lot of the track, but South by Southwest kind of is this convergence of the major industry all comes to Austin, Texas, and they have an incredible program that we now participate on the other side of the table. It's the mentor sessions where you literally get 10 minutes one-on-one with producers, filmmakers, programmers, etc. And we felt like a gold mine. I mean, we took as many of them as we could, and we would just talk about the film we were trying to make. And we were walking out the door one day, and a slot opened up. This woman, Nancy Schaefer, who had this amazing resume of starting South by Southwest and Tribeca. And the slot opened, we sat down 10 minutes, felt a human connection, which is the most important thing. And then that carried on for 4 hours at a bar nearby. And then she was like, well, you seem cool. Like, is your writing any good? And then we shared the script, and then that we made 2 movies together.
I mean, that's great. That's exactly how it happens, period. It doesn't happen any other way.
Mm-hmm.
But getting your good writing to somebody, trust me, people don't read very many good scripts. So if your writing is good, that people will recognize it pretty quick. And I will say, for the record, of all the people moving to Austin from California, I think it's a good thing. I think it's exactly the sustaining thing that you were asking about. I wasn't joking about it. I think it's a great thing. Meaning more smart, creative people that make things and put them in the world is the more the merrier.
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely.
Thank you guys for that great story. And we're going to do one last question, which is, and I'm going to read it out loud because it's great. Hi from a recent LA to Austin transplant. I'm nice though. We believe you, PP. We're really enjoying this discussion. Appreciate everyone's time. What do you think about commercial producers, creatives joining the film world to collaborate? Do you all prefer to work with film producers and creatives? So I'm guessing film versus commercial, and what does that integration look like? And there is a lot of commercial production happening in Austin now, as well as DFW. Everybody knows that that's a big center for commercial work.
I mean, if they're willing to slum it with us, then we want to work with it. We don't. There's very little distinction. I'm glad that everybody laughed. It was meant to be a joke, despite my tone. Yeah, who cares, right? Like, if you're a creative and you've got good ideas and you want to get your fingers dirty and the work, then awesome.
And as long as you don't mind being paid, it's
and hopefully that is not always a part of it. I mean, I do think that it's important for the project to pay the people in one regard or another, and that there's something of value being given to the person, whether if it's not credit, it's either credit, money, or like experience you didn't have and you're trying to move up. It's cool. I've been working in craft services on all these commercials. I was really wanting to do some location work. Well, you're gonna have to make some concessions in order to do that, and that's either work for cheaper to get the credit and blah 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 blah. But I'm just making sure that all your projects have that bandwidth for them, so that that you're never asking people for favors. I think is an important place to be, meaning like, if you're not getting as much out of this as I am, then it's not equitable and don't participate. because we don't want the favor. Because I spent a lot of time feeling guilty about asking people to do things that I felt weren't fair, not meaning like taking advantage of people, but only to realize like, wait, that's what I did too. And I didn't feel taken advantage of. And then, but stating that and making sure it is equitable for everybody.
I think that's
Yeah,
really
I would just say
important.
too.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Holly. Oh, I would just say too, it's just like, have a, if features are a star that you're aiming at, you're on a track making commercials, you keep making commercials, you're going to keep getting offered commercials, and it sort of just kind of goes and goes and goes and goes. If you want to make features, you also have to have an openness that it is a different medium, and you have to be able to embrace the fact that you're going to have to learn, you're going to have to sort of start at the bottom of the ladder again and climb that track and be okay with that. But also don't be okay shedding that label, and don't let people just define you as stuff, because like the world's gonna do it if you don't decide what you want to be. They'll tell you who you are.
Mhm.
You have to have a sense of proactivity, and kind of put a stake in the ground of the kind of things you want to do with your life.
Right. Definitely. I'm gonna, Holly, hijack for 2 seconds to answer. Just go back on the financing thing, because I saw that person ask, and I know we don't have very much time left. To be really quick, if you can't get money through a film society like Austin, or even the North, if you didn't win it, you do have to work and save money and like sacrifice. It's a massive amount of sacrifice, but like make your amount of money realistic. Like if you're really trying to make a short film, like it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. I think I did people will want to work with you for free, no matter who you are. And it's not taking advantage of them. It's like, hey, I'm like a casual DP that I haven't had very much experience yet, but like, I want to help you make this music video, and this actor wants to participate. Just make it bad and make it as good as you can make it, and you'll get better and better, and then you might have access to that money. But like, it's not, you can do it, is what I'm saying. And hopefully that is coming loud and clear. It's like you think that we had access. We didn't always have access. We had to apply to that grant to the Austin Film Society. I had, I think, $8,000 in the bank, and I spent $5,000 of it to make Pioneer, leaving myself with $3,000 to then move to LA to like try and make something happen. It really is like foolish levels of abandon with your entire life savings. But like, if you want to do it, you want to do it. And if you're any good, you will eventually, hopefully thrive. Obviously making sure that you have like a support system of friends, and not necessarily family, but family and collaborators, and that you're not nearly as alone as you probably think you are. So hopefully that's helpful.
Very nice.
Mic drop.
Yeah, that was very, what a way to wrap it up.
I think that's great. And then Priya also put something in the chat about foundation funding and thinking creatively about who your partners can be on a film, and especially if there's a fit for impact, that you really do want to look at that world, the foundation and nonprofit world, and find out who can partner with you on the film. So thank you, Priya, for putting that out there. This has been such a joy listening to all of you and these really wonderful observations. And James, thank you so much for moderating and being here with us.
James.
So Jockey, congratulations on your world premiere, and hopefully people have more chances to see it, because I think Sundance, we lost our chances are over. Is that correct?
I think you still have until, if you bought a ticket for today, it was the second screening today. And so if you have a ticket, or if they're still available, it's a 24-hour period until 9 a.m. tomorrow that you can watch it.
Great. Everyone go watch it. It's so wonderful. Thank you guys, and congratulations. And thanks everybody for being here. It's really nice to see you all. We've discussed how geography is meaningless, but it still clearly means something to have so much creativity and vision from Texas film. And thanks to you all for sharing today.
Bless you. Peace, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Texas forever. All right.
Thanks, guys.
See y'all.
Bye.